Eight, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Good evening. Welcome to the 12th Dimension stroke Scottish Paranormal podcast with me and the amazing Chris Meek.
All right, Andy.
Oh, yeah, right. Oh,
Hi, everybody in the chat.
Just open my mouth and it rolls out. Could be anything. Just glad it was something nice. Oh, right. So, do you want to kick it off, Chris?
Yeah, so we kind of thought we'd have a bit of discussion on Skinwalker Ranch. We're no experts in Skinwalker Ranch. Just want to put that out there.
Idea.
So any mishaps or slightly wrong bits of data, we'll take it in the chin because we're no experts. But the kind of thing I want to talk about is mainly a wee bit about the series Skinwalker Ranch, and then some of your kind of even thoughts and theories on it. You'll probably have a lot of yourself in the chat as well. So initially, we'll maybe talk a wee bit this week about the history, or just like the kind of original story of Skinwalker Ranch, feed in as well for the chat. And then the weeks subsequent after that, we'll do a bit on Series 1, a bit in Series 2, and a bit in Series 3. So this week's mainly a wee bit about the background to it, plus we'll just have a general chat about everything. That's all right, Andy?
Yep. Sounds good to me. So... Yeah, so I was just getting everything, all the levels ready and what have you. Make sure everything's in front of me and not at the side. Right, so we're gonna start off with a couple of our own bits of stuff and do. You said about doing like a paranormal roundtable with a Q&A, didn't you?
Yeah.
So do you want to do that first and then towards the end go into Skinwalker?
Yeah, if you want, yeah. Do you want me to tell that story we spoke about earlier on?
Yeah, because do you know, since you told me that was what, before Christmas, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It's just been, I just need to know the full story. It's just one of them.
Have I froze?
Yeah, it'll be all right. It'll kick in a second.
All right,
I can still hear you.
Yeah, that's fine. So,
there we go.
It was actually before I was doing one of the podcasts with an author who was writing a book on Robert Kirk. So Robert Kirk, if you don't know the history of Robert Kirk, I'm sure quite a lot of you do. He was a reverend in a town called Aberfoyle, which is akin to the fairy lore, and he was a kind of paranormal investigator these days. The original kind of fairy tale story is the fairies kind of take him away to like fairyland or whatever. There's quite a lot of different theories to it. He wrote the Secret Commonwealth. So, cut a long story short, I had the author back on again. She's writing a story, a biography about Robert going back, researching all his stuff, researching all his diaries, researching everything. So it's quite interesting. So just at the same time though, round about the same vicinity, not too far away, you're probably maybe, as the crow flies, maybe about 30 miles away in the same type of vicinity. I got a message of a guy who told me a story, and in the actual email he told me it was a dryad. He said it was, right, and I had to look up what a dryad was. I know like different names of certain things, but a dryad it was one I wasn't sure of. So it was some type of kind of fairy type being. So the story goes that he was on this was only, if I can remember correctly, I'm sure it was only 2015. I'd need to double check the times, but it's no long ago anyway. He was driving on the A9, which is one of the kind of main roads or motorways that goes right up the central of Scotland and up into the Highlands. So this was between Stirling and Perth, so it's still quite in the central belt. It's not too far away. He was driving up, and he was driving on one of the back roads just off the main carriageway. During the day sighting, driving along, and he had originally seen something coming towards him. So it was like a kind of shape coming towards him to start off with, and he seen it was either a falcon or not a falcon, but being like a sparrowhawk or something. You know what I mean? So like a bird of prey, a smaller bird of prey was going straight for this thing. And this thing, he said it was windy, but this thing, he said it was going against the wind, and it was coming straight for his windshield in his car, or his window in his car, his front window in his car. I say windshield, that's more like an American term. So this thing was coming towards his car, and when it got closer, he could see what it actually was. He said that it was his wife was in the car with him. She was sleeping, but he was driving compass mentis during the daytime, and he seen this thing. He said it was about a foot wide, roughly maybe just under a foot wide, and it was the shape of what he said was it was the shape of a maple leaf. It looked like a star type shape, right? And this thing was coming towards him in the wind. But originally, he thought it was a bag. He thought it was some type of bag, and it was like getting caught with the wind. But the wind, and this bird of prey was chasing it. And as it got closer to the car, he noticed that it looked like a maple leaf shape, say like a kind of star, 5 kind of pointed star type shape. And when it got to the car, it said it changed colour. It changed from like when it was getting closer to him, you could see it was, I remember, orangey colour. It changed to a kind of lighter pinky colour, and it changed again. And when it was going to hit his windshield, at the front window of his car, and it just skirted over his car. It didn't actually hit his windshield. It was like the wind obviously kind of caught this thing and took it over. And
it's like aerodynamic sort of thing.
I'll get to the description of it now, but on the other side, he slowed down because he thought this thing was going to hit his window. And there was a car coming the other way, and he said they slowed down as well because they seen the same thing. And but they never stopped; they just kept going. But they actually slowed down because they could see it. And what he described was, he said it was like a shape of a maple leaf. It was wings, and he said in the middle of it was a man. He said it was like a really, really small, like stature man, like white in colour. And he said that the way he described it, he said if you've seen Guardians of the Galaxy, you get the thing Groot. It was like the tree type thing. He said it kind of looked like that, but his head was kind of like was flat at the top. He could see features in it. He said it wasn't. It was more kind of smooth, but that type of shape is kind of Groot. But it was a white and kind of colour in the middle. And he said he could see muscles on it and stuff like that. He said he could see like legs in that, and this thing was like the actual wings were attached to its hands. And he could see the thing as it went over the windshield. It was wincing for the fact that it thought it was going to hit it. It thought it was going to like hit the car. Plus, at the same time, you could see the horror in its face with this bird chasing it. It was almost like this thing appeared and managed to come into reality or whatever else, and it was all of a sudden it was getting caught up in whatever was happening. Obviously, just hit this car, plus this bird was chasing it. So, but that was a story. I mean, he's seen this thing. He said it was absolutely nuts. I think he only told his wife and one other person.
Right.
But so that was generally the story it was. I mean, but it's just a pretty strange encounter. But he said he could see it up close. He said it wasn't a bird. It wasn't some kind of marsupial that flies or anything like that. He said it was definitely in the centre of this mass of wing. It was a definitely body of a man with muscles and stuff like that. It was like almost like he said, it's like when you see these statues of the kind of Greeks with the muscles and that. He said it was like that.
Yeah.
But his head was kind of a funny shape. It was kind of like a normal shaped head, but cut off at the top, almost like that kind of Groot. It was kind of flat. That's why he described it as that. That's quite an interesting story. It's just a kind of weird one for that. But that's it. I mean, up there, that area, that kind of whole area is like it's on the same kind of hill range as where like the kind of whole Robert Kirk thing and all that kind of is as well. It's probably even 30 miles. It's probably a lot closer than that.
Yeah.
But so strange story.
Have you had any more like that? Or anything similar?
What was the other one? No, off the top. Any in mind? What was the other one?
Oh. Yeah, I knew I should have wrote it down.
So was that not the story?
Yeah. Oh, all of it. No,
I'll come back to you.
Chatting. Yeah, it's right. If you remember, we just jump straight back to it if you want.
Yeah.
Because I know there was another one, wasn't there? Because when I was on the phone to you and was chatting about sorting this out, you told me that one, and there's something else, but I cannot remember what it was.
I can't remember what that one was.
No,
sorry, folks.
if one of us remember, then hopefully we'll get the story. But if not, you ain't getting it. Simple as
that was quite a strange one because it just came through at the same time where I was doing that, and it was totally it was just a kind of odd one, you know what I mean? But the guy also said as well his friend had seen, they worked near that vicinity, and his friend had seen like a UFO type thing in the same area as well. It was more or less in front of an orb or lights, and he showed me pictures. He had actually sent me pictures of it as well.
Yeah.
I'm just bamboozled with the other one. You sure it was me that told you it?
Definitely. Yeah, because it was in that one phone call when we were sorting everything out. Because I rang you back, didn't I? Because I was dropping people off, and then I said I'll give you a call back on the way home.
I need to remember.
I don't know. Sorry. I don't know. But anyway, right. So I've got a bit of an update. Is what I was just talking to you about. So for you guys that know, Jessica Jones did a remote viewing on me because I've had a few weird things going on with UFOs and finding that implant in my nose and a few other, like having lucid dreams about going up into the spacecraft and all these like Star Wars things going on above my head. So she actually sent me the data, I'll show you, of what went on. And then somebody's explained to me what it all means. So what I was told to do, apparently most people have the ability to do this. So I printed 2 copies off, put them back to back and laminated it. So if I spill anything on it or anything else, I've still got the email, so it's not too bad. But if I ever lose it, then I've still got a decent plastic copy of it. So put my hand over the reading and then see what I can pick up. But because just talking to you about this, wasn't I? I've been listening to the binaural beats, for about 2, maybe 3 months now. And I am going into, when I'm listening to it, the different types, I'm going into a different, so would you call it a zone? It's like you pick up, it's like different energy, isn't it? You go into a different state when you're really concentrating. So I was listening to that I put my hands over the reading about 2 centimeters above it, and I was picking up. I believe I was picking up on what went on. So from what I've got from it, I might be completely wrong and just be a bit of a nutcase. I don't know, but I've picked up that it happened when I was younger. But then a lot of the other stuff that's on there makes a lot of sense to what actually went on. And then I got an image in my head of what this being looked like. So it wasn't the small grey. And every time I've done it, I've got the same image every single time. And this is the kind of freaky bit, because I always try and change the image just to think, is it me over imagining it? Or is like mind playing tricks? Do you know what I mean? When you picture something in your head and you try and play about with it to try and alter what's going on. So I've tried doing that, and it's the same image every time. But each time I'm getting more detail on what it's about. So the image that I've got, this is the freaky bit about it. It was a tall grey. It was from what I can work out, was at least 6.5 to 7 foot tall. Had the typical 3 fingers. I've not got a voice from it. I still don't know why. I'll just jump back a little bit. I don't believe I've been abducted. I just believe that I've been visited and I've had some sort of communication with them. I don't know what that communication was about. I don't know what they wanted from me. I don't know what they told me. I don't know what I've told them. I've got nothing on that. That I'd just be guessing on. I've got an image of this one individual being, and it's weird. So you've got your typical tall grey with fins out, then goes like bigger bulbous head. But the eyes weren't that big. They weren't the big black eyes. They were big, but more like human. So where you've got the pupil and the iris and the cornea and all that, it was more like that. But then they seemed to be more reptilian than grey. So like a bit of the two, and it's the same image every single time. So it's like I've not even got a grey colour that I can compare it to. So it's darker grey than that. It's like between silver grey and gunmetal grey, but not that dark. And and each time I do it and go into this state, I'm getting more and more information. But I know I can't rush it. I've got to do one step at a time, taking what I've picked up from that. Then I'll leave it a few days. Then I'll do it again, and then just keep doing that. But Ruby's just asked, how did I find out I had an implant? Woke up one night in the middle of the night. I literally had my hand up one side of my nose, and I pulled a little plastic tube out, probably about a centimetre long. It'd be, I reckon, about 3 millimetres thick. So the hole in the centre was about 1 millimetre, and then the outside of it, circumference, was 1 mil all the way around, hence 3 millimetres. Pulled it out, should have been covered in blood. Put it on the bedside unit. Woke up in the morning, no blood, nothing, no implant. So I don't know if it's gone back in, or it's been taken, or it's even. I was on my hands and knees on the floor looking for this little tube, couldn't find it anywhere. But there's other stuff on here that coincides with a lot of stuff that's gone on that I've not told anyone about, that I'm not going to go into because it's personal. Do you know what I mean? So
it's quite interesting that we were chatting before about the binaural beats and stuff like that.
Yeah,
I was looking at doing the exact same over the last wee while, looking at all the Robert Monroe Gateway program.
yes,
And there's other ones as well called Sacred Acoustics, and it's all the same. It's all like alpha, beta, theta, delta, all that kind of stuff. I mean, but they're really good as well, but in a total different state of consciousness.
Yeah, but that's it. So so what day were we on that? Friday. So say I think it was Tuesday. I've started listening to the Higher Consciousness by Neural Beats.
Mhm.
Because I've been listening to the Focus and the Sleep and the Memory ones, but they kind of like they've done a little bit, but then I just needed that bit more. So I've started listening to them, and it's just took me to the next level, which is good because it's like you go out and you have a few beers, and then you start getting everything starts getting a little bit sketchy, and your memory's like it's like that state, but without the sick feeling, without the dizziness and all that. You kind of just slide into it, and it's something completely different. So that's what I'm getting from it. Sorry, one sec. I'm just marking a couple of questions. So that's what I'm getting from this. Like I said, someone told me how to read the data that Jessica sent over. And since picking up on all that info, I'm kind of not scared. I want to know what the next thing is that I need to do. And something's telling me it's going to be regression. I think I've picked up on everything that I can pick up on visually or mentally. I think the next bit is I need to have some sort of hypnosis done. Might be wrong, I don't know. But
On that
that's
note,
what... Go on, sorry.
On that note as well, I was recently reading a good few Dolores Cannon's books. Have you read them? They're quite good. It's all about like advanced regression and stuff.
Right. No, someone else told me about them.
Yeah, pretty good. So it's gone back. So they done a process where it was going back into past lives, and it was mainly about helping heal the body for certain illnesses and things like that. And it's apparently it was supposed to be things where from maybe a past life had affected you in this life. So it was to go back and try and rectify that. So people were going back into their past lives and stuff, and then they were like finding out why they had like a certain pain or why they had a certain illness, and it was how to. And then what would happen is they'd go back, and the person who was doing the regression, sorry, it was like when they were like lying down on the couch or whatever. It's almost like they'd ask the higher consciousness, and they would separate, and they would talk in the third person. So it was like they weren't really. It wasn't like the person lying on the couch who was talking. It was like a part of the person. And then, but they could ask. They found out they could ask a lot of different stuff as well, like knowledge, for the ether or wherever else. You know what I mean? And then it then delved into a lot of abduction scenarios and what the actual kind of plan is and all that kind of stuff. It's quite interesting. Like, quite a good few books out. I've just kind of started delving into some of them, but I mean, it's worth. If you've not looked at that kind of side of it, it puts a totally other. I've been quite into the whole consciousness side of the abduction scenarios and stuff like that. And this takes it to a kind of another better level. You get more kind of information.
But I'm not getting anything that was abducted. There's no. I don't feel any negativity from any of it. Not at the moment, anyway. I just think it was visitations, whatever you want to call it. So, and I've also been told that I've got missing time, which doesn't surprise me. I kind of had a feeling about that, but it was one of them. Do you know when you're not 100% sure?
Yeah.
So I'm just going to have to. All I can do is just do a little bit at a time and then update as I go if anyone wants to know.
So Ancient Ruby just put another question, well, a comment in there, just saying if the implant is taken back, you're more likely to get another one.
Oh yeah. I was just about to put that up then.
Yeah.
So
reading subtitles there.
Yeah. Can you do sign language? You could be the little guy in the corner doing all the signing. Yeah. So yeah, if anyone's got any questions about anything, just put them up and we'll go through them as we get them. So I'm just. They're coming
want
up
to
on
just-
YouTube quicker than StreamYard.
I'm saying, do you want me to just talk a wee bit about Skinwalker now, and then we can just jump about, or
Yeah, we can do.
do you want to do just? So there's a old question for Andy Guy. Sorry, that's just Joby.
Yeah, that's right. I'm just going to put a few comments up from this one's from Jestin.
I'll totally recommend the books. I think the one I've recently read is called The Custodians.
Yeah.
Which is if you've heard some of the kind of stories recently, there are things where, for example, things that's coming out for people like John Ramirez, the CIA guy.
Oh yeah.
Who's an experiencer. So some of the stories he's coming out with, Chris Bledsoe, things like that, and also then you've got people like Jim Semivan linking into all these stories as well. So all the type of stories in regards to the kind of overall type of plan for whatever's happening for what's going on in regards to abductions and all that kind of stuff. For one kind of instance here, the Loris Cannon book, The Custodians anyway, does go through all that, and it's like the information that's coming through for that's quite interesting. You know what I mean, it really is, and it goes into a lot deeper, but it all totally links, and it links into other stuff as well. So I've been going through quite a lot of times. Like I've read all the Robert Monroe books for the Monroe Institute. They're really interesting as well, about out of body experiences and that. But he goes into all the kind of planes or dimensions, whatever you want to call them, but it links into all that as well, where people coming back into this plane to help, they need to manifest a body and stuff like that. And some come through as these other beings or whatever else. That's what he's taken it, right? And that's back. He's gone through these kind of stories from the mid-50s up until kind of obviously when he finished writing his books and stuff. But they links into the same type of stuff as what's happening now, the same type of stuff in like Dolores Cannon's books, and a lot of kind of stuff that's coming from consciousness, talking for experiencers, which they actually relaying from what they've maybe been taught or told, or eventually maybe now it's coming out their consciousness, now they're remembering through regression or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's really, really interesting. You know, I mean, I find that bit like really interesting, way, especially to do with like astral traveling, and it's just totally all linked, and it kind of, I mean, it's funny to even, you couldn't even imagine now going back maybe like 15 to 20 years ago, maybe even as far as that, when people were still thinking it's a lot of different separate things. You maybe got life after death. You've got UFOs, you've got ghosts, you've got like high strangeness, and you've got. Don't get me wrong. There is some. You probably get some series where these things will be separated, but there's so many links that pull all this stuff together. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, but with you saying about astral travel, it's one thing I forgot. Listening to these, like the binaural beats and I might get this wrong, but someone will probably correct me. Is it the psychedelic binaural beats? They're the ones that are a lot more intense. That's where they play different tones on different sides. So you do have to have like headphones or earbuds in.
So what they do is they kind of bring the two hemispheres of the brain together.
Yeah.
And focus up on that.
Yes. Yeah. I said that's what someone was telling me, because I'd not heard about them till about 6-7 months ago. It wasn't till summer that person that mentioned them to me, I'm like, don't know what you're talking about. It was one of them. So then I said, just started listening to him. Sorry, go on.
Going back to Robert Monroe. We'll talk a wee bit about Skinwalker in a wee bit, but I mean, and the Robert Monroe stuff, when they were developing a lot of their kind of things with the Gateway program, and it was all to do with binaural beats, and they knew with the brain patterns and all that kind of stuff, where they could get people to these levels and stuff, and they even helped develop these like Hemi-Sync stuff for like the government, when it was like when they were doing a lot of remote viewing stuff, because when you had like people like what's his name again, Moorhouse, when he was involved in a lot of stuff with the remote viewing programs, then it was Robert Monroe helped develop stuff it made it slightly easier for people to try and kind of get into.
Right. You froze.
Yeah. Still there?
Yeah. Sorry, you just froze.
Yeah.
It's
All
right.
right.
I've just found what it was. It's isochronic tones. Isochronic? I'm sure that's how you say it. And they're the ones that are like at a higher level. But I felt that when I'm listening to these, when I come back, I just feel that I want to detach from my body. So say I've been listening to it for like 15, 20, 30 minutes. When I come back into myself, so to speak, I kind of feel then I want to... It's like... I can't think of the word. It's like can't escape from your own body, but I feel like I need to.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. I know what you mean.
Because it wasn't until I started listening to this stuff that I've started feeling that, and it's the strangest feeling. Yeah, isochronic tones.
The gateway process is quite good because it takes you through stage by stage, right through
Yeah.
it. My problem with it is I try it too late at night when I'm tired, so I fall asleep.
That's what I do.
So
I
that's
had one
what I
last
do.
night.
So you need to basically do it. But when you look at, as I said earlier on, we're talking about it. When you look at stuff from Gnostic practices, which look at astral travel and things like that, and you look at the Monroe stuff, and you look at all that, it's all the same. It's the same processes. Apart, there's slightly different ways of doing it, but it's the exact same processes.
Yeah, just different technique.
It's just different techniques. But even with the techniques, it's like, for example, when they're relaxing the body, there's different ways of doing that. But it's all a process. So they relax the body, then they'll focus something, and then they'll move away. If you're not even using binaural beats, so it goes like that. The binaural beats can do it a lot quicker. But it's pretty interesting. Somebody asked a question about Skinwalker. So, what are your theories on Skinwalker Ranch phenomena and the area? Utah has neighbouring ranches with strange activity. Can they name other ranches? Got it up already. There you go.
Yeah. I'm staring them, but I am missing a lot of them because I've set everything up a little bit different, so it's hard to keep on top of it all. So the other two are Stardust and Bradshaw. I know there are two of them around the area. Stardust
is Bradshaw's somewhere else. Bradshaw's, I don't think Bradshaw's in Utah.
No, Stardust, that's in Phoenix, Arizona. So I don't know.
So going back to the start anyway, where you're skinwalkers, right? So obviously that was the Ute tribe, Skinwalker, the area Skinwalker. And for people, the reason we kind of want to talk, I kind of want to talk about this as well. I had a few people asking me, so I'd referred to a few things about Skinwalker and podcasts, and I know quite a lot of people in the chat, and us, we know quite a lot about Skinwalker. We've watched it and stuff like that, and we've followed it, we've read the books and all that, and listened to podcasts and stuff. But it was, I had a few people ask me questions on it, like, what is it? And so I kind of thought there's people out there that don't know about it, or they maybe they've had maybe a glance and look at it. So I kind of thought it'd be good to just do a kind of wee bit overview on it and stuff, and then maybe go through that, like the series, and have a wee bit of feedback on the series and thoughts and stuff like that, and what goes on. So the Skinwalker, rightly saying, is basically from the Ute tribes had it as a shapeshifter, and it was usually attributed to maybe somebody who was like a bad shaman, and they had to kill somebody in their family to be a Skinwalker. Yeah, and that was like part of the actual ritual.
That was the initiation, wasn't it?
Aye, so that was like a part of it. There's different names for it in different areas across the world and stuff for the same type of thing. Don't ask me what they are, but there is different names for like when you get them further for different tribes in Mexico and stuff for a shapeshifter or that type of shaman. And
because it was
the ridge that runs along next to Skinwalker Ranch is called Skinwalker Ridge. And it was supposed to be, because of the activity, it was supposed to be in the path of the Skinwalker. But the ranch is like about a 480-acre ranch that sits in the Utah Basin. But as somebody alluded to in the chat, it's not just Skinwalker Ranch. It is the kind of whole area where you get a lot of strange activity happen, from UFO activity, you get cryptic activity, spit it out. activity,
Yeah.
poltergeist activity in the houses, just total high strangeness, portals opening up and closing. We'll maybe get into some of the stories and stuff as we go, but it's a kind of strange area, and my interest in it as well is the fact that it's a window area, right? This is classed as a window area, like anywhere else, right? And these are everywhere. I mean, they're everywhere. I mean, I think we sit on one here because where I stay, and this is my interest in it, and where I stay is we've had multiple UFO sightings, cryptid sightings. We've had, and gone back into the 90s, we had like hundreds of UFO reports in like the Falkirk area. I mean, it's classed as the Falkirk Triangle up here, right? But that's a kind of wide sweeping area as well. And it's always attributed as well as next to places like burial mounds and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Burial mounds have gone back. I mean, in there with the Ute tribe, it is, they always kind of talk about this going back hundreds of years, if not thousands of years and stuff like that. But when you look at some of the sites that happens, like for example in the UK, you've got a place that Paul Sinclair looks at, as we all know, down in like East Yorkshire. But there's places dotted about the world. You know what I mean, up here, we've had lots of different stuff happening over the years. It goes quiet, it kind of ramps up again. But the thing is, when I started the podcast, to try and find more stories that are out there, because my local town, there's like so many kind of weird things happen there. Where I don't stay there now. I'm kind of outside it now, but there's loads of stuff. So that was my kind of interest originally in Skinwalker, because I know like there's these places everywhere. So the very, very kind of first story from it, it relates to, correct me if I'm wrong, right? So it's going for 100 years, right? But recently, when it came into kind of recent times and people known about it, a family moved into the ranch. They were cattle farmers.
Yes.
And was it the Gorman family, the Sherman family? Because there was one name that was used to actually hide the right name of the family first. I think originally they said it was like maybe the Gormans, but it was actually the Shermans, or it was vice versa.
I think Gorman's had it first. Sherman's bought it off him.
No, it was not. What happened is it's the same people, because I think George Knapp had one name to disguise the actual real family name.
Right.
So
well, it was the Sherman, his husband and wife. Like you said, they're just ranchers. So, and then they bought it. Was it early 90s?
Yeah. So the first story from it, when they actually moved in. They moved in, and they were getting like their cattle and corral and stuff like that, and getting all their stuff into the house. This is just like a small kind of farmstead with a couple of ramshackled houses about, and they've got this kind of wide swathe of land with a kind of high kind of sandstone ridge that runs along the kind of property.
Yeah, because you got is it 3 homesteads you've got?
Yeah.
So you got homestead 1,
just small empty cottages or small empty.
So you got homestead 1, which is like the main house. Homestead 2 is where a lot of the main activity goes on. Then homestead 3 is just like, I think that's just a couple of stables or something, like a couple of barns. There's nothing. I think where the gatehouse is, where you drive in.
The first story when they came in, they moved in, and there was it was like they seen a wolf coming across the pasture towards them, and they said it was a really, really big wolf, but they said it looked kind of placid and friendly, and it then went for one of the calves in the corral, so they tried to beat it with a stick, and it didn't stop. They said it was massive. This thing was big, and it was really, really big. Tried to bite, grabbed it with the snout or whatever, the calf, and they beat it with a stick. And the guy went and got his revolver, shot it. It still didn't budge. Shot it again, didn't budge, and he then went and got his rifle, his 30-06 rifle, and shot it, and eventually recoiled, and then started to walk away. Shot it again, and he's seen this a bit of kind of flesh come off it, and they tried to track it and follow it. And we went so far, and the footprints just ended with this thing. It just totally. It's like it went onto the kind of the dry kind of riverbed, and its footprints just ended. They couldn't find this thing. It just disappeared. But they said the funny thing was when they came back, the flesh the flesh that was lying in the pasture was also, it almost smelled like it was rotten. And when the NIDS team came, which we'll talk about in a wee minute, they basically showed them different pictures of wolves in the area and all that kind of stuff. There wasn't any wolves in the area anyway, but what the pointed out to be was a dire wolf. They said it looked like a dire wolf. The size of it and the shape of it, they said that what they described was a dire wolf, which is extinct basically.
Yeah,
that was the kind of first thing that they seen on the property, which was really, really, really weird.
Yeah, because the land that they own doesn't cover all the ridge; it only covers part of it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, because I was looking, it's a weird how the land that they own. So it's like big rectangle. Then you've got like a piece in the top right hand corner, a big square, which it's only connected by like if you when you draw it as a shape, it's just connected by the two corners. But I forgot where I was going with it. Oh, you saying about the footprints? I know there's a canal that runs through it.
Well, it's like it's a river, but I think the river kind of dries up.
They call it a canal, and it's not that. Parts of it's not that wide. It's only like 3-4 foot wide.
Yeah, it's like it's a burn.
So you could even I could jump it. But it's just you've got, because there's a lot of rumbling. There's a lot of underground stuff going on.
That's what I kind of found interesting as well with some of the things in it, because you can have a link to during the whole time they stay there, and even when other teams come on, which we'll talk about a wee bit, they hear like rumbling under the ground, or as if like metal's getting dropped and there's metal clanging and stuff like that, like deep underground, as if somebody dropped something. And when you listen to obviously some of Paul Sinclair's stuff, they hear the same at Bempton or on basically on the cliffs. They hear like they almost. I think one time he described that they've heard almost like it's like somebody dropping like a heavy metal kind of thing or heavy concrete, and they hear these kind of reverberations coming through the kind of stone. But that was the kind of first instance that I had at Skinwalker Ranch. For anybody doesn't know the story, I mean, I'm sure all you do. But it's mainly to put this out, other people kind of learn a wee bit about it as well. If we'll be accurate as we can or can. So we all the different types of stuff that they've seen. I mean, over the years, loads of stuff. I mean, so that was the kind of first thing that happened. But there's other stories where they had seen there was like poltergeist activity. So in the house there was like loads of strange stuff where they would see apparitions. They would either have things where they'd come home and I think the lady had unpacked one of the most kind of ones you hear in some of the stories is unpacked all the shopping and put it away, and then came back through and it was back out on the table again. Or she would have her brush for coming out a shower or something like that, and then it would be missing. We didn't know what it was, and then it'll be basically in the freezer. They'll find it in the freezer later on. So all these kind of trickster stuff and poltergeist kind of stuff going on. There was loads of kind of different things like that kind of going on throughout the time. Attributed as well was like UFO encounters, like things where they seen sightings, they seen orbs, different colours orb, red orbs, blue orbs, orange orbs, white orbs. They would see like the sky opening up as if there was different sky on the other side. And then like UFOs come through and stuff. They would also see things where the cattle mutilations, multiple cattle mutilations. I think they had 14 heady cattle killed over the time they were there.
Weren't that one of the first things that happened was cattle mutilation?
The first thing that happened was a direwolf thing. When they say that it looked like a direwolf, and then they found that their heady cattle was starting to get killed and stuff. But it was so all these kind of things were going on, and then they seen UFOs, they seen everything, and they were getting really kind of scared. They seen things where it was almost like a predator type thing. Running, where you could see like an apparition. You could see. They said they could see footprints in the as if they were, because they tried to chase it, I think, and they could see like footprints going through the river. Yeah, as if something was running, but they couldn't see it.
Couldn't see it.
Aye, and there was like loads of different things happening, and I think it over a number of years, and I think what culminated in the fact when it came ahead for them was, and there's a lot of other stories which we probably delve into, but it came to head for them when these orbs are seen. When they seen the blue orbs, they were they used to call them the blue meanies, because they always brought a negative feeling with them. So if you had any fear, that means like you would, as soon as these things, they brought all the fear out in you, so you would like feel fear when you seen these things. I think what kind of took it to a head with them in the end was when the dogs chased these orbs, and they heard like yelps for the dogs, and they went back. They went back the next day to try and find the dogs, and the dogs are like both. They were both. I think in the book, when you're reading the book, he just said they were like a pile of mess. Like the dogs had been like totally obliterated. These things. But when it goes on, you hear other descriptions. It was like they were almost like flattened. Like they were like
that's
totally
what I heard.
Totally
like
compressed
pancake.
and flattened. Aye.
Yeah.
Which is absolutely mad. So then they ended up, I think, from that they were going to leave the ranch or sell the ranch and whatever.
Yeah.
And that's when
they sold it to Bigelow, didn't they?
That's when they sold to Bob Bigelow. So Bob Bigelow, the millionaire, had NIDS. So it was National. What was it? National.
Yeah. Well, he set it
Discovery
up,
Science.
and then he ended up being funded by the government.
Yeah. So they start off with had NIDS, which was the National Institute for Discovery Science, and that was they ran that for a number of years and investigated the ranch. So he employed investigators, scientists, security, all that kind of stuff to try and figure out what it was. They had they had dogs as biosensors, they had military people there, they had all that there, and that was through the time of NIDS, right?
Yeah.
So they had that for the years they had that was between 96 to 2004. And then his own kind of program had ran out there. Not ran out, but that's when they done that. And then he had another thing called BAS, which was Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Studies.
Yeah.
Right? So that was funded by the Defence Intelligence Agency, and the information for BAS isn't being outed yet. You don't know what that is. There's been some stories came out about it in regards to the book that came out, Skinwalker's Repentigans. So some of the stories came out with that.
Yeah.
That during the times anyway, in the NIDS time, some of the strange kind of stories which but I quite liked hearing was the one where there was a scientist and there was like somebody else there, and they had like a night vision goggle.
Yeah.
And two of them you could see this light in the ravine, and one of them could see the light just getting slightly bigger. The other one with the night vision could see it opening right up a lot bigger, and the one with the night vision could see a creature crawl out the actual hole. So it almost looked like a tunnel.
Yeah,
and they seen this creature crawl out it and then run up the side of the kind of verge.
Oh.
Absolutely.
So do you think it's like a vortex then? It just happened that ranch was built there before anyone knew anything about it.
I don't know. It's a funny one, because when you get into the whole kind of Curse of Skinwalker, the series, and what they find there, it's interesting. And then like John Alexander, who was a colonel in the American kind of military, and he worked in the DIA program with BAS.
Yeah.
And he stated it was a portal. That's what he said. He said it's a portal. The area is a portal. But you get so much different stuff coming through. I mean, all that weird kind of phenomenon they had, and then with things like that, a creature coming out running through. They've seen things where they've seen creatures in trees and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they couldn't see it, but they could hear it, and they could see its eyes, and they could see it. They shot it, and they could hear something dropping out the tree, but they couldn't find nothing. And they seen footprints. The footprints is seen when it was light or whatever. The footprints is seen. It was almost like dinosaur footprints. It's bizarre, absolutely bizarre. They said it was like three-toed footprints, like dinosaur. It's almost like dinosaur footprints. The one thing it fell out the tree.
Yeah, it is. It is strange. It's because I've been watching it over the last couple of days, first season, and the guy that has it now, that Fugel, he was saying that when Bigelow had it, there's a lot of stuff he had to sign, so like Official Secrets Act.
Yeah.
And then a lot more stuff between him and the government, they rated it or classed it as classified, so we'll never ever find out what's gone on with the experiments that have happened there.
Well, I think when we get into the series, there's things in the series where I think. So what happened is when it came towards the end of the process with Bass, I'm sure there was somewhere along the line where Bigelow didn't get totally paid for what he did, so he held back the information, some of the information and
Oh
and
yeah.
the data that he got for all the scientists and stuff like that. So, but obviously maybe some of it was classified or whatever else. But when you go to some of the bits in the series and they're pulling people in for the past to their investigations and stuff,
Yeah.
there's things where you can almost see them getting nods and winks for look at this or look at that, or
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, we're going to look at this time because we think this is here, but you
Yeah.
can tell that somebody's probably potentially gave them a nod and a wink.
Oh yeah, definitely. It's like with is it Travis Turner, the
Travis Taylor, aye.
Travis Taylor, that's it. When they go and they're checking the radiation levels, and he ends up with radiation burns on his skin.
Yeah.
So it's like, why would they go into that area at that time? They must have known that there's something going on, because they keep going on about as soon as you start digging anywhere on the land, that's when the activity starts kicking off.
Yeah, that's I find that quite interesting as well with the whole thing with that. So let's say they were told when the Shermans or the Gormans, whatever the right name is, Shermans, I think.
Yeah.
Whenever they bought the property, the past owners said to them, you can't dig in the land, or like, you need to contact me if you're going to dig in the land, or something along the lines. And so that was quite strange. But I mean, it's all that kind of stuff was going on, and there was like things as well where during the Bass process, when no Bass, sorry, when NIDS were in investigating it, and there was things where they had cattle mutilations happen. So there was like ones where they were checking the head of cattle, and a calf, they tagged it in the ear, they walked up into the other pastures, they came back, it was only 40 minutes had passed, and this calf was sitting stripped to the bone. I mean, there was loads, there was no blood in it, there was no blood anywhere. The calf was stripped to the bone. It looked like it had been dissected elsewhere and then put back down.
And then
only 40 minutes had passed. And so that was kind of an odd one. And there was things like that happening. But during all that process as well, and it actually kind of came home to me a wee bit when they were talking about, they talk about different orbs and stuff. Yes. And it was when they talked about the small red orbs, like really, really small LED-sized orbs, in and round about the cattle. You could see this in and round about the cattle. And it was that kind of triggered a memory with myself, because I had seen something like that back in the day, and I totally forgot about it.
Right.
And I've only heard one other story with it as well, which was with Paul Sinclair as well, where somebody else had the same kind of thing. It was hugging the ground, this kind of small red LED. There's something about a question in there.
Yeah, it's right. I've got a few. I thought if we do the questions in the second half.
Yeah.
That was it. Ruby's, but it was dissected elsewhere. But it's like you said, how do they know to be in that area at that time? I know they're going to be constantly filming and just walking around there, all gets edited and then put together.
Yeah.
But how many cameramen must they have? I'm not saying that they're just going to be walking in one area. They're going to have like 3 or 4 people in different areas.
Yeah.
And if they capture anything on camera, then they're going to use the best of what they've got. I get that, because that's what I'd do. You won't put the crappy stuff up where there's nothing going on, when you've got something with activity. But then you go to the last one that I watched was when they had 42 cows, and they found one in the Westfield, and all the other had moved right over the other side of the ranch, yet they've never gone grazing in the area. Yet they went in with the Geiger counters in that, and there's 0 radioactivity. But when they went in, it was there 10, 15 minutes before, that guy's phone, it was like all these apps were opening and he was texting and all these widgets, the lot was going off. What? Everything was going off at once.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's interesting, I mean, but we'll kind of get into that as we go on with the series and all that kind of stuff and delve into it. But I mean, on some of the stuff where it happened kind of prior to it, where you had that obviously with the thing getting stripped. That was found. It looked definitely it was like dissected elsewhere, then put down in the space of like 40 minutes. And then you had other things where they had four. It was happened quite frequently. And they had 4-headed cattle in a corral. It wasn't a big corral, but it was like they were bulls. They were like massive bulls.
Yeah.
And they said to each other, "Well, hopefully nothing happens to them." You know what I mean? Because we'll kind of end up going under, because that was a livelihood and stuff like that as well. And they ended up. They came back and they were all missing. They were all missing. Every single. There was 4 bulls, like massive bulls. They were all missing. They couldn't find them. They were frantic, and then they ended up. They had a look. He had a chance to look, and there was this like white kind of box cart crate type thing. No crate.
Yeah,
like
there's all crammed in.
We probably say it was like a porta cabin type thing that was like at the side of the corral, and the 4 of them were comatose inside this. There was only one door in. And it was all barbed wire and stuff like that. And these 4 things were inside this porta cabin, old porta cabin where they kept tools in it, and were like rammed in there. And they said you couldn't even get one of these things in there with like a number of people, let alone like 4 of them. And he said when he shouted his wife out to come and see, he said they found them. They obviously came to and they started kicking off, and then they kicked the door open and ran out. But when the NIDS people, because that was during the NIDS process when they were there doing the investigation, and they weren't constantly always there, but maybe like in Las Vegas and stuff, and they fly in and out and stuff. And when they came, and they looked at it, you could tell that they hadn't been anybody in at the doors because there was still dust and cobwebs and all that kind of stuff. And they checked everything, and what they did find is though the whole corral. So the corral is like it's like just metal fencing. It goes right round like this part of the field to keep these bulls in a pen. And the thing with the corral was it was all magnetized. It was magnetized for a long length of time after. Like I mean, like for like a good number of hours, and then the magnetized that eventually dropped. But it's just funny that some happened. So some definitely happened there with that. But and that was during all that kind of process when NIDS were in doing their investigation. They were doing a lot of stuff which was documented. And they would have like even the outlying areas there was things going on. I mean, and somebody alluded to other ranches and stuff like that. People seeing UFOs, people seeing creatures, people seeing Bigfoot.
All sorts and everything. But I didn't realise it's one of the first things that you learn about when you start watching the series is that when they was doing the atomic bomb testing back in the 50s, 60s, whenever it wasn't that far away. And a lot of the after
the winds.
The wind blowing it across, so they reckon that's another reason why there could be a lot of high radiation in that area.
I'll tell you, well, the thing is though that the radiation is transient, so it moves, right? So the thing is when we dig into the series and that, it's like it's transient. So you'll have radiation that will appear, and you have electromagnetic radiation that appears and spikes to a high level and then cuts off again. And that type of radiation as well can that's what the type of radiation that affected like Travis Taylor a number of times, and affected what's his other name? The guy who got it in the back of the head.
When his head just
yeah. So
but that happened to him twice. First one happened and nearly killed him, and then there's all them spikes that were going on with all the different sound waves that were going on. And it started doing it again. He went to hospital, and then it calmed down. As soon as he took him out of the area, apparently it calmed down.
But that's kind of what the interesting thing I find about it is when you look at all the things that happen, like they're digging on the property, so like they call it poking the bear or whatever. And it doesn't mean when they're doing the series, but even in the past, if they were digging, they were doing X, Y, and Z, it might generate activity, right? If these places are elsewhere, so if you've got a window area which is sitting in your backyard, or like maybe let's say for example here, there's a window area which I think in like the Bathgate Hills, or maybe it spreads maybe a lot of different kind of geographical area. So how do you know that when you're maybe building that house along the street and you're digging up, or there's people digging up the roads, or you're running a motorway down somewhere? That's not causing something, but you don't notice that because you've not got a wide expansive area where you're looking at the sky and anything like that. So I mean, And
it's a
that
bit
then
like
there's
a
that might be
butterfly
a
effect.
focal point for when you've got a UFO flap somewhere, but then it's a case of is something else causing it? You know what I mean? So it's something like poking the bear for this to happen. But it's funny because you end up getting into the whole kind of scenario where like the baiting UFO scenario, because people trying to bait, like you've heard of the scenarios where people baiting UFOs with certain frequencies and things like that, like with certain frequencies. But that it's strange that you're thinking that you could actually bait a UFO with certain frequencies when they're supposed to be like highly advanced technology and stuff like that, highly advanced minds and whatever else. But there has been talk of that about like baiting UFOs in with certain frequencies and stuff like that.
Yeah, well, that's one thing that they were saying, that once they started doing like the drilling and digging and that, it was causing activity to kick off. But it's like, so I don't know if it's the same where you live, but I'm like on the outskirts of Northampton, so 5 minutes away, I'm in the country. It's like just little villages here and there. But they start there's one place where they're building something like 20,000 houses. And it's not farmland, it's not woodland, it's just crap land basically. So you can't farm on it. No trees, it's just like wasteland, I suppose. So what if there's something there, like you was just saying, and then they start digging it up for building on? Do you think how big a space they'll need for 20,000 houses? I don't know how big an acre is, so let's say it is 100 acres. I guess I ain't got a clue. So if a certain point of that has a certain type of energy, as soon as they dig it up, then that's going to cause other things to happen, like it would on Skinwalker, because we don't know where these activity points are, do we? Really?
See, that's the thing though. Like some of these places where we don't know where they are, right? But some of these places are always attributed. It's there, right? At Skinwalker, there's a bit up in the hill in Skinwalker where there's like it's almost like a portal, row of stones that look like a swirl, like a portal, and that was always like depicting like a portal or something like that, right? You get that. You still get that in this day and age. You get it in Celtic mythology and stuff as well, where you'll get like it's almost like a portal and stuff like that. There's one up in Bonnybridge, up the back of Bonnybridge, where all the UFO sightings back in the day. It's like petroglyphs and stuff, right? So the interesting thing is what I kind of think as well. Up for me, you've got the Bathgate Hills. You've got like a 5,000-year-old burial mound up there. If not, it used to be a henge, right? Next to that, you've got more burial mounds. Up there, you've had umpteen UFO reports. You've had cryptid sightings. You've had just some of the craziest things. I mean, there's one, I've probably relayed this story before, but I was up there with the story with the Silver Man when somebody seen like a cryptid, cryptid up there, right next to burial mounds. I had some type of kind of, in the same vicinity, I had like a kind of Oz Factor effect 20 years prior. And when I went to interview the guy, that's when I realised it was like the same place, right? And the interesting thing is when I was up seeing the area and I was taking pictures and I bumped into a couple and I'd said to the couple, I'd kind of made an off-cuff remark about the Silverman kind of thing to see if they knew about it. And they told me a story. They basically turned and said, well, what did you see? And have you seen something? I said, no, a guy had said he'd seen something back in the day and told me about the story. And they said, well, we've seen something. And I thought they were going to tell me a cryptid story. But they'd actually said they'd seen like a large sphere, a large white sphere, right? Gone down behind the hill. Right? And then, which was only like, you're talking, this was January. They said they'd seen that in October, right? There's other stories of people seeing like big spheres at that area as well. The guy also said, he stays in the edge of Bathgate. The guy also said that he'd seen like a massive black triangle, like one of the ones you hear about, like in where it's like the size of aircraft carriers, like aircraft hangar. He said he's seen one of them above Bathgate going into the cloud and it pulled the cloud with it. There's been the next town over for that, for example, you've got like Armadale, my old kind of town, numerous stories in there. The guy had seen like some kind of oblong Toblerone shaped triangle craft sitting in a
Yeah.
field, hovering there for like a good bit of time. Called the police. The police came, right?
Yeah.
And the thing left before the police came, but this guy had missing time and all that. You've then got 10 miles for there. You've got the Bob Taylor incident, abduction, the whole guy in 1979, I think it was, where he seen a UFO land, and it was a forestry worker, UFO land, things tried to abduct him and that. Another 10 miles from there, you've got another kind of thing as well. So you've got this whole vicinity where there's loads of things happening in the one small area. You've got another like 15 miles other way, you've got the whole Falkirk Triangle and Bonnybridge, where all the UFO sightings back in the 90s, there was like hundreds of them. So that's where I kind of link it in with the stuff that can we look at or whatever, not or even your area, because there's that much stuff there.
It must be a gateway of some sort. It has to be, because how would you have so much activity in like a condensed area? Why would it not be like spread about?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, totally. It's funny because my wife isn't into this stuff at all, right?
Yeah.
She'd just rather know. She'd just rather know, right? I'm not saying she didn't believe it. She would just rather not know, right? So when I told her about the story with the Silver Man and up in that bit, and yes, I'm talking about Bob Taylor. Yeah, that was a story. Somebody just put that in the chat. So the interesting thing about the Bob Taylor thing, right? When I met this guy who told me the story about the triangle and stuff, he told me as well that he said when he was walking away, he goes, "That's not the only story." Because when I was younger, I seen a classic UFO when I was younger, when I was with friends. It predated the Bob Taylor sighting with 2 years in the same area, which is quite interesting. There was more to it than that and stuff like that. But it was like interesting just bumping into this couple like in a January in the snow. I'm sorry, I'm jumping a bit there, but
no, you're all right.
But so that's what I can attribute. There's loads of different stuff that goes on in the area, and it's like, what causes a flap? You know what I mean? Is it somebody digging up a motorway somewhere? Is it somebody putting up a new type of mast with a new certain frequency getting pumped to? Is it something to do with maybe nuclear material is stored somewhere? I mean, there's like all these different types of things that could potentially cause a flap or potentially cause a bit of attraction.
Yeah, but after watching the Skinwalker series, it does make sense if it's the Earth's being dug into, because don't forget, they're not just digging a few feet down. They go like
they're boring.
They go about 100, 150 foot, because I know they've got to check the ground to make sure it's not contaminated, and it takes about 2 years or something to do that. So I used to deliver to a company, and the guy was saying that's what they do. So when anyone ever has building permission, whenever anyone applies for planning permission, they've got to go out and check the ground, whether it's a big housing company or you just have an extension on your garage, something like that. Don't matter what it is. They've got to go and check the ground to make sure you can actually build on it and it's not going to cause anything to anyone around there. And it can take up to 2 years for it to come back with all the details that they need before they can give it the go-ahead. So if they're digging hundreds of feet into the ground, you don't know if they hit something, if they disturb something, if they could just be releasing a different type of energy into our atmosphere. And it could be that causing the activity that's going on.
The interesting thing as well, which it's what I think about Skinwalker and other areas, is like the whole hitchhiker effect. So the hitchhiker effect, for people that don't know, I think most of these will know, obviously, is when there's been a bit of phenomena. It could be anything. It could be attributed to poltergeist. It could be attributed to a UFO encounter, some kind of paranormal encounter, and then something latches onto you and goes home with you. So we found this happening at Skinwalker Ranch. So what happened with some of the teams who are out there, the NIDS teams, and then one of the kind of more prominent ones was the Bass team. That's when they found out. That's one of the stories that did get out with the Bass one. And in the book Skinwalkers at the Pentagon,
Yeah.
One of the kind of strange ones was with the Skinwalker. One of the guys who was working there travels 2,000 miles back home, and then they start having orb activity in their house. Their kids are seeing them, the wife's seeing them, the husband's seeing them. The kids say that there's some type of wolf which is cutting about outside. The wife sees it, right? This bipedal wolf standing at the back tree in the garden. And they go out to it, and the thing runs away bipedally, runs away on its two legs, and it's a living thing that's there. It's kicking up dirt. It's tall.
Yeah.
And this thing runs away, and they had like multiple bits of phenomena at their house, attributed to taking it from Skinwalker Ranch, and it was like latching onto them in some way. And they went and checked. Even this thing, it was at the tree. There was scratch marks on the tree where this thing was. Yeah. And it's interesting that there's a few other stories like that basically linked into people who like worked at Skinwalker, and this thing went with them. So either could be, that's one of the more kind of crazy stories, but there was things where people were having poltergeist activity in their house straight away kind of after it, where they'd have books flying off the shelf or a wine bottle flying off the shelf and smashing it at the wall, or kind of apparitions and things like that.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. It's just, I don't know what it is, to be honest. I do think there's a connection between it all. But what's the connection?
Well, that's the thing. It's $1 million question.
I know. Does anyone have the answer? Right. Are we good to have a break?
Yeah.
Is that all right with you?
Yeah.
Cool. Right. So we'll have 5-minute break and then we'll carry on. We'll jump on the questions when we come back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Right, guys. See you in 5.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
And we are back. Oh, that break seems to get less and less. Oh, he's gone.
No, I'm just turning my heater off.
All right, you're getting too hot.
No, I was actually cold, but I put it on. It'll probably maybe hear it through the mic, so I've just turned it off.
Right. I've got a fan behind me and try not to turn it on.
Converted my garage. So it's like...
Right, so got some questions. So these are pretty much, some are about Skinwalker, but then it's about the other stuff we were talking about. So I'll start off with this one from Space Cadet. She wants to know, what's the artwork on the wall behind you? So the logo for your podcast?
Yeah, so it's from a person called Karen Gilmore. She does some children's kind of artwork and stuff like that. And I found it online.
All right, okay.
I found it online a good number of years ago. I was thinking of getting a tattoo off it, right? What it is so you get Pictish kind of mythology and stuff. You get Kelpies. So a Kelpie is a kind of water horse, or it's a mythological creature. So there is like there's some of like petroglyphs going back. I wouldn't say it's more like stone carving artwork where there's like two kind of Kelpies. They don't look as detailed as that, obviously, but that's what it is. So it's like two Kelpies intertwined. So and not far from here as well in Falkirk, we've got the Kelpies. If you don't know what the Kelpies are, it's like big, massive horses' heads that come out the ground. They're like huge.
Right,
artwork. Really, really cool. But that's what they are. So it's a kind of mythological creature. So that was, I did ask Karen if I could use it for my emblem for my podcast, and she agreed. As long as, like, if I ever made money, I'd give her some cash. I don't make money.
So far, you've not made it.
So she'd be very gracious to let me use it. Aye, so good question.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool, that. Cheers. Right. Next one is from. Oh, so this is from Warren. So I'm guessing this is about the remote viewing that I had done. So I kind of. He's put. Does Andy feel he's ready for this? So it's like the progression steps of finding out what went on and why. I spoke to a couple of people about it, and they've all said that I just need to do it in my own time. Like I said earlier, not to rush anything. But it's yeah, I'd love to have all the answers straight away. But I think if it was to do that, it would mess me. It'd be a total head blow. Do you know what I mean? It'd be too much to take in all in one go. I do feel that I'm ready for it, but I know I need to take baby steps or whatever you want to call it. But it's knowing what level to go next because I never thought I'd get the answers that I got. I didn't. I was expecting to say, "Yeah, you've seen this, you've seen that. You got some missing time. Blah blah blah. That's it." I didn't think it was going to be like direct contact. So now, I try. I don't think about it much because I've got a lot of other stuff going on. But I do think I'm ready. But like I said, I've got to do one step at a time. I can't just go in, suppose all guns blazing, and expect to know everything all in one go. It's going to take a long time, months if not years, I reckon. And I think the slower I do it, the easier it's going to be for me to mentally take it all on board. So yeah, that's it on that one. Sorry, one sec. Right. So the next one is from Nickname. She wants to know what are your theories on Skinwalker. Oh, we've already done that one. Ignore me. Sorry about that. Right. Next one is from Joe. How far back does reports go from Skinwalker and the area? Have you got anything on that, Chris?
As far as I know it goes back hundreds of years anyway. I don't know the reports, but there was reports of the Ute tribes and stuff like that going back.
Yeah.
But there was also documented. I'm not really sure. But as the series goes on in Skinwalker Ranch, because obviously it gets highlighted when the Sherman family are in there and stuff, and that's they can bring a bit of attention to it. But when the series goes on, there is discussions with people who used to work in the land before that family, and they also said something about digging in the land or some strange activity in the land and stuff. But I mean, the whole I think going in that whole Uinta Basin, there was documented loads of UFO reports dating back into the 50s and all that. There's things like that, and there was a few investigators off that area. One of them was a school teacher, as I can remember, who had done an investigation himself, and he went. It might have actually been. I'd say that older in the 50s. I mean, obviously, right? But I don't know when he was. I think it was maybe he was maybe the 70s or whatever. But he done investigations and gone around and collecting UFO reports off ranchers, off people, and all that. Because back then there was loads of stuff going on, not just at Skinwalker, but in the whole Uinta Basin. There was loads of sightings, mainly kind of UFO sightings or strange just going on or high strangeness. So he was collecting all the reports. And you can still find them. I think they talk about it in Jeremy Corbell's film, Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Right.
But that's as far back as I know.
Well, I know there's one part in it where an alpaca gets attacked and they get the vetting. That Tyler, is it Tyler?
Taylor.
Travis.
Travis Taylor, yeah.
That's they're questioning about does he know about stuff that's going on? He's been living in that area for the last 40 years. So this is going back to 2015. So however far back 4 years, I can't do the math, so I'm not going to try. And he used to go on there when it was the Shermans, when they looked after it. He'd go and check their cattle and what have you for them. And he was saying that even before they moved on, there's always strange stuff going on, but that was why the Shermans got out of there as soon as he did.
But the people before that owned the house, like when they moved into the house, it had deadbolts on all the doors and all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
I mean,
every window, every door, every way in or out.
Aye.
Because didn't some have them on both sides, not just on one side of the door?
It was on the outside as well as the inside.
Yeah. Because they find a room, don't they?
Yeah, but we'll talk about that.
Smash through it, and he's like charcoal and bits of bone, and he's like, "There's no way in or out of this room."
Yeah.
So was something put in that room and kept as a prisoner and left to die?
I don't know. It's a strange one. That
Yeah.
one. But that's as far back as it does go back a lot longer than the Shermans, and I think that's more attributed to the Skinwalker Ridge in the area, the Utah Basin, because there's been UFO sightings and all that kind of stuff for years. But then the whole Skinwalker thing dates back to like the Ute tribes fighting with other tribes and stuff as well.
Yeah, because that's where the name Utah comes from. Is one of the tribes that were origin to that area. I can't remember the
Utes,
Uhans or something. I think there's 2 or 3 different tribes with very similar name. But yeah, they had a guy on that was he was Native American, and he was saying about it. It's like they've been told from as far back from him being a child and his parents and grandparents and all that, they were all told not to disturb the land. So this guy was what? I say he was in his 70s. You go about 4 or 5 generations. It's what, 400-500 years ish. So if they've been told that, it's a few hundred years that it's been going on at least that they know of. So yeah, there's definitely something going on. Right, next one. Well, that's Joe saying about questions. Right. So this is from Space Cadet. Was there any info in the series about someone being killed, a security member? I've not got that far yet. I don't know if you know anything.
No, that I can remember. No, I don't think so. There's nobody been killed.
People injured.
As far as I can know, in the series, definitely know in the series.
Because there's only 2 security guys, isn't there, that are kind of running everything.
Yeah. There's one guy who recently on the 3rd series, no security guy. He's one of the guys at the ranch hand, and he gets a sharp pain in his heart. And the interesting thing with that, and he didn't get killed or anything, but the interesting thing with that as well, right, is you can, with electromagnetic fields, right? So the electromagnetic fields at a certain frequency can burn the skin. They can give you pains and all that kind of stuff. So they can affect you, and that's what's happened where, like during the series, we'll talk about another series where it can burn the hands and that kind of stuff. Gives you basically a radiation burn. But it can also, with that type of frequency or technology, it can also affect the heart rate and affect the heart.
Yes,
things like that as well. I know this, right? I know this because I'm electrosensitive, right? I have been since I was like early 20s, and it's like things like mobile phones, Wi-Fi, all that type of stuff, right, affects me. I can feel it. It gives me a sore head. I get migraines off it. So it's just basically a condition I've managed to live with. So I end up, my whole house is hardlined and all that kind of stuff. And I just try and, I'll use a phone, but I use a limited. I mean, I just try and control it and try and use as much technology, and basically wireless stuff affects me, right? And that's why I know a wee bit about that. I know about what it can do to me. You know what I mean? Because if something sitting in front of a screen, it actually affects. I get a rash on my face when I sit in front of a screen.
Oh, right, okay.
It's nuts. I mean, it's totally nuts.
Similar sort of thing, I suppose, to what's been going on there.
Yeah, I mean, it's just certain frequencies. You know what I mean? Because that's when they're testing, that's why they wear the body meters. When they're using the body meters, it's actually for It's not for radiation. Well, there is radiation background.
It's for their safety, isn't it?
But it's not just radiation in terms of like radiation, like radiological stuff. It's down to the actual the frequency radiation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like all your ELFs and stuff like that, or like all the type of frequencies that's caused by
they were saying like
that type of technology. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the different types of bandwidth.
Yeah, totally. Like I mean, there's microwave weapons and all that kind of stuff being developed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's all that type of frequency material. You know what I mean? That's what affects them.
Well, there's one question. I find it quite. I'm going to struggle with this, but it wasn't really an experiment. It's just something that happened. What's the favourite experiment so far on the ranch you've seen, and why? So when they was checking this cow that had died, they was waiting for the vet to come out. Everything was spiking, and one of the lead scientists that's on there, I can't remember the guy's name. He was saying you've got every single frequency going off. You got microwave, like broadband, Wi-Fi, all 5G, whatever it is. Obviously, it weren't 5G at the time because it wasn't out then. But it's like having every single frequency going off all at once. And they know it's not human because we're unable to make that happen with the technology we've got. It's impossible for humans to have all these different frequencies going off at the same time in the same place. And that was when his phone, it's like someone had ordered his phone and was just pressing every single button all at the same time.
It was like having all the different frequencies on at the same time for everything.
Yeah. And it's impossible to do that. We don't know how to do it.
So it blankets out at 1.6 gigahertz roughly, right? So that's what it hits when you see that signal, right? The signal they find when they know the phenomena is happening is 1.6 gigahertz, right?
Yeah.
The 3 gigahertz range is the whole kind of UFO type range as well, right? And but that thing with the 1.6, you can get that on other types of frequencies, right? But going into the kind of question as well, the same type of thing where the experiment, I don't think it was explained very well, because when the experiment, when they were actually the same as what Andy's talking about, right? But they were trying to find out where the signal was coming from, right? 1.6 gigahertz, right? So they attributed that to a certain point. So when you use a normal meter, when you use like an EMF meter, it'll search for it all kind of out. The bandwidth will just kind of search. So you can't. They're not really directional unless you buy a certain type of meter that can direct it.
Well, so that's what they were doing, weren't they?
So they put them in like tin cans, so the rest of the tin can was sealed it, direct it. I don't think, to be honest with you, I don't think that was extremely accurate. But I don't know how they came from, because I know a wee bit about the meters and stuff like that in regards to the condition I had. So I know a bit about the frequencies and all that. So with them trying to do that with the meters, and then for somehow finding out a mile above the ranch that they've got this signal, the stronger kind of thing of the signal that's just coming for up about a mile above the ranch, or X amount of, maybe like it's like about a kilometre and a bit above the ranch where they're finding the signal coming from, they're stronger. So I don't know how they got to. I know they obviously went up and they dropped stuff for helicopters and all that kind of stuff, but it was initially how did they get the weather balloon thing, didn't they? So I found that that interested me, right? But I don't think there's enough explanation of how they found it, and that's one of the things I'm thinking. Where are they getting like nods and winks for the BAS team who were there before to say, right, look here, this is what we found, because maybe they can't pass that knowledge on to them. But I found that interesting, and I found what else was it? I found the one interesting when they got the rabbi in, and they done that, which we'll talk about when we go on. But just
I've not seen that one.
So the rabbi done some type of ritual which opens up a portal or closes a portal. I think it was open up a portal. And as they done that, they had all the sensors on. They had the what do you call it? The spectrum, obviously, but you can see like the heat spectrum and all that kind of stuff as well. And then so when they done that, the 1.6 gigahertz hit. They then ended up, they could see something moving in the heat kind of zone when they had a good picture of Homestead 3 or something like that. And there was a few other things happening. at that same time. I just found that quite interesting when the guy was doing that. And it happened again when they recorded the rabbi doing it and they put it out elsewhere and they still got some type of effect from it.
Yeah.
So I found that quite interesting.
Yeah. See, one thing that got me related to what you've just said is when they're testing to see what direction it's coming from.
Yeah.
And they're saying it's directly above us. It's not coming from the ground.
Yeah.
And then the next experiment they're doing, it's coming from the ground. So, and all this radiation, all these sound waves, whatever they are moving about. But they, like you said, they don't explain how they've got to that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just
So that, I mean,
they've
they have got
just
like,
doing that.
They have got detectors everywhere, but that's the thing. It's not a case where they've shown how they've pinpointed it. I mean, I know they've done the directional thing in the tin can and all that kind of stuff, but that, I mean, maybe when I go back and watch it all again, I mean, in regards, I've been through it a few times, but
yeah,
I just didn't think it was clear enough an explanation of how they found the thing in the sky. They pinpointed that area in the sky, which was some type of portal. But John Alexander, who was worked in the Bass team with Bigelow,
Yeah.
that was the Bass team. For anybody that doesn't know, I'm sure you do. Was that was from the Defence Intelligence Agency? So that was funded, and that was the one that was provisionally funded by OSAP, which was, I'll just get that acronym for it, was Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program. So that was OSAP. That was a precursor to ATIP, which everybody knows about with the Tic Tac and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So ATIP came out of OSAP, but OSAP funded BAS, who done the investigation on Skinwalker Ranch after 2004. That's what you don't know. That's still kind of classified stuff, but you know some of the stuff has come out of that, but not a lot.
Yeah, they mention it, but obviously they don't go into detail because apparently they've not been told. It's all been kept under wraps. So, but it's just obviously the more I watch it, I'm going to read the book by George Knapp as well next week. So,
good question. Though.
Find out a bit more. Sorry.
Good question. Though.
Sorry, 1 second. Right, you're just nicking my Xbox controllers, don't worry. Forgot what I was saying. Go on.
Aye, so we're talking about just the question. So that question, just obviously we've answered in regards to the best experiment.
Oh, right, yeah. So
that was really kind of answered that, but I mean, it's just putting the questions in there. Yeah. So any other questions?
Yeah. So this is not Skinwalker. This is straight for you from Rick Allen. Where was the last report of a dogman Chris had in Scotland?
I've not really had any dogman sightings in Scotland, or I mean, there's been sightings of like you got the sightings of a big grey man and stuff like that up in the Cairngorms, but I've never came across any dogman sightings or anything like that in my time for what I've been doing or what I've read. No, really, no. There's been multiple kind of like black dog sightings and things like that, black cat sightings, but you can attribute that just to a black cat or a black dog. One of the interesting things, going a slight bit of tangent, so going into that with the no dog man, but there is cases of the big grey man or Bigfoot up north, which has been highlighted by like obviously Chris Turner and Elusive and stuff like that. But there's a book, if you've not read the book, there's a book by Affleck Gray, his name is, and he documents a lot of the cases from the early 1900s to late 1800s right through to present day to when he was alive, of sightings of like kind of Bigfoot in Scotland. And when you look at all that, if you're into that type of field and you follow it, you can see similarities to what's been kind of done elsewhere with the
Yeah.
kind of methods they follow and all that kind of stuff. So you can see links with it.
Yeah.
But no, nothing dogmen, anything like
Right. Well, I've got a proposition. I know where one is. Do you want it?
that.
I don't think he means a dog, man. I think he means a report.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Do you
You
want
can contact me via Facebook, Scottish Paranormal Podcast at gmail.com. Or basically any name.
Yeah.
Give me a shout.
Yeah, because you're on pretty much all platforms, aren't you, with the podcast?
Yeah.
Spotify, Apple,
Yeah.
Stitcher,
So
Castbox. That's the one I use.
most podcasts and streaming sites, and then obviously YouTube as well, Facebook.
Yeah.
But yeah, give me a shout, Rick, definitely. I'm trying to think what I was going to say there. I was going to say something else in regards to that. No, the dog man. But there's been sightings of like Bigfoot and stuff like that. I mean, the things like that.
Well,
Not
like
myself personally, but there've been sightings in the past.
But like you said with the Silverman, was it Silverman?
Yep, that's like 5 miles from here. If that.
Yeah. Because in that way you said you go running up that way. I think when you come on last time, you were talking about it.
See, that was going back. That's what I find kind of intriguing about that story, because it was really synchronistic with the fact that when I went to 20 years prior, I was out running, and I hadn't run in that forest before. And it was like, it's not a big forest, but there's like a bit of flat land before it. You might have heard this story before if I've told it. But I was out running during the day, and I got to the top of this denser bit of forest. And I'm not looking for nothing paranormal. I'm just out running. And something basically stopped me in my tracks. It was like total fear factor. It was like being a kid again.
Yeah.
And no want to go any further. And I cut my run short and came back. And I thought it was really, really weird. Told the wife. And now you would attribute that to the Oz factor. Or then I didn't. It was just a weird kind of feeling I got. And that was it, fear. But when I went and interviewed the guy for the Silverman for his sighting, it was about 50 to 100 metres from the actual encounter that he had. Yeah. And then there's burial mounds there as well.
Yeah. So do you think you picked up on that? Because you were saying you're sensitive to like different, like new technology.
I don't know.
Wi-Fi and all that. Do you think that's could be part of it?
I'm not sure. I mean, but the whole kind of thing where like, it's not as bad now because I stay away from quite a lot of it and I don't prolong use, but I could feel your phone ringing before it would go off in your pocket. I mean, I could feel a text coming through before it would come through. Yeah. But it's nothing paranormal. It's just I can just feel it. I'm just sensitive to microwave radiation. But I could if there was something. I reckon if there was something electromagnetic in an area, I could probably pick up on it as an ability to feel it.
But
because it's not that type of frequency stuff. I feel.
Yeah, but if it's obviously everything's made up of energy, if it's giving off a strong enough energy count, then you're going to pick up on it straight away anyway, regardless.
Yeah.
Before anyone who isn't sensitive to that kind of stuff. So you've got a bit of a head start than anyone else. So if we see you running in the opposite direction, we're going to follow you. Well, I am anyway. Don't care. I'm gone. Right. Next one is from Justin Apple. He'd like to know: is Falkirk still a hotspot for UFO activity? Former resident.
I think it is. I mean, there was a sighting that was reported just a few months ago. Where somebody reported seeing, I think it was like a bar with a double kind of ball thing on it or something like that along the actual 54th, which wasn't too far. I'm sure Malcolm Robinson was talking about it.
Right.
But I reckon it is. I mean, I know I've recently picked up a story, but it did date back to round about that time, and it was a experiencer type story, which I put in the podcast and stuff, and that was in that area. I didn't detail exactly where the area was. So I was trying to keep, obviously, I wasn't going to get the exact area, but I'll give you an idea. It is within that area. But that was potentially in the 90s. But then there was still sightings up to no long ago. But I do think there is sightings there. The thing is, these days, people are too busy looking at their phones and looking up or looking about where they're going. So I think a lot's missed. But there's definitely probably stuff going on. No, I mean, they get sightings coming through and stuff. It maybe not as prevalent as it used to be, but it's where to look and when to look. Just cut off Andy. Yeah. But aye, so that's the whole kind of Falkirk thing is it's been going on for years. You know what I mean? And that whole kind of area for Falkirk, Stirling, right across, right up into West Lothian. There's been loads and loads of sightings here. I mean, so that's kind of why I want to try and pick up more stories for this area. I think Andy's disappeared. So when he's not here, I'll go on a wee bit more about Skinwalker when he's not there. So the other bit as well, we were saying there, as you probably know, back to Skinwalker, OSAP was funded by the DIA. They funded BAS, which was Bigelow Advanced Aerospace Studies. I mean, so basically they funded it for years. They had it in there for a good number of years, and then a lot of that stuff still getting classified. But totally interesting place, and I do think that there's more and more places out there, especially as I'm saying, my locale. I think there's places here, and I think that the thing is, going back to the question with the Falkirk thing, the thing is getting out there and just looking. You know what I mean? Like, take a kind of a leaflet of Paul Sinclair's hat, for example. He goes out and walks the cliffs like daily to see if he can see stuff. That's why he sees stuff, because he goes out. You know what I mean? And that's kind of what I started doing as well, getting out and just getting out. But it's hard because people don't want to talk about it. People still don't want to. It's still a stigma. It's still stigmatized. They want to talk about it. When I bumped into that couple, the guy told me a number of stories what happened to him when he was younger. He's seen the fly, basically seen the classic style UFO, the one I was talking about that predated Bob Taylor, in the same area 2 years prior. Some other things happened to him, and he told me that as well, and also seen a few other things. And I said to him, I need to get these stories off you. And I gave him my details, but he never came back to me. He was reluctant to tell me the stories. And I walked the hills till I found the guy again. And I found him about a year later. But he kind of apologised and just said, like, I wasn't really comfortable coming on. I said, look, it doesn't matter. I just want to kind of know the story. So he told me a bit more and stuff. You know what I mean? But not going into mega detail with him, but just interesting that there's people seeing so much kind of stuff, but they didn't want to relate it because they're just not comfortable. Yeah. It took me years to even kind of talk about some stuff. And what I've seen is no extremely crazy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but to anyone who's not into anything like this or doesn't believe it,
the thing is, though, I mean, if you've not got anybody, if the people are not into it and they're not following it, and like all he is are kind of we're into it, we follow it, we read probably some of the same literature and books, follow the same stuff, and we've got a rough kind of grasp of what each other's kind of talking about and stuff. But if you've got somebody who's not into it and they find out a bit from maybe CNN or the news or whatever, and you want to tell them, where do you start? Right? Because like you can't jump in and start talking about Dolores Cannon regressing people and talking about what the alien agenda is. They're just going to think you're absolutely like nuts, right? But we understand that because we've been kind of following it, and we can. You've got witness testimony for that length of time. People see much, and we know it. We follow it there. But the thing is, it's trying to. There is that much people who they don't know. That's the thing, they don't know, and that's why I was talking about earlier on about the Skinwalker Ranch thing, where I still get people saying to me, "What is Skinwalker Ranch?" They follow the podcast, but they don't know what it is. So it's like it's things like that. So it's like there's people are still just trying to kind of get in and maybe feed it. So hopefully, in years to come, it'll come apparent.
Hopefully, but whether it does or not, it's another story. Right. Still got a couple of questions. So this is from Joe. Andy and Chris, when you going to visit there, I'm guessing Skinwalker, as soon as somebody pays for me to go.
As soon as Brandon Fugel
Yeah.
invites me.
Yeah, as soon as I get invited, I'm gone.
See,
Yeah.
the thing is, I don't think you need to go to these places. Well, there's enough places here that you could go to. I mean, for a while, I was always going to want to get down and go to Paul Sinclair's area because of the activity down there. But then when I stopped to think about it, I was like, there's so much stuff here. I don't need to go anywhere.
Yeah. It's like I went to, for those that don't know, plastered it all over Facebook and YouTube, went to Cannock Chase on Tuesday. Yeah, I went during the day, but I went round the park called Brockton, where the stepping stones are. So I downloaded an app called Staffordshire Walks, and it has a list of all the walks. So each area is like between 1 and 10 different walks. Obviously, some are longer than others. The one we did, it was about 2.7 mile. So we did this walk, it's right around the river and all that. There's a few bits that felt uneasy and a little bit eerie, but I think that's because there's no one else about. You couldn't hear the traffic. It's gone down into like a ravine. And we probably passed about 10 people, or either joggers or dog walkers. And it was just certain parts had a different energy than the rest of it. And then on the drive to that particular car park, we passed the sign that's for the German military cemetery. That's what used to be the POW during the Second World War. So there's average about 5,000 German soldiers buried there. There's either shot and killed on English soil, or wherever they died, they moved and they was buried there. And even that during, I had a bit of a scout about before I started. I did a live stream from there, but I weren't just going to go in and start filming. I waited, like, was in there 10, 15 minutes before, like, checking it out, making sure there's no one going to come over and have a go at me for filming. And just walking around there, it's like, even though it was during the day, it was deadly quiet. And the road was only, about half a mile away. I mean, you would normally still hear the traffic, but you couldn't hear anything. And it was just, I don't know. It's hard, unless you've been, it's hard to explain. And then we walked back up to the Commonwealth Graves, which is right on the road. That is literally probably half the size of a football pitch. Tiny compared to the other part. And that had a different vibe about that as well. So, but it's one of them places I wouldn't go at night on my own. There'd have to be at least 6 to 10 people with me before I'd even consider going. You're miles away from anywhere. And there is, once you're in that part, I suppose it's like the Highlands in Scotland. Excuse me. Once you're there and you're right away from civilization, anything happens, what are you going to do? Do you know what I mean? Even if you just go over on your ankle or something like that, you're going to be waiting quite a while for medical attention.
I'm going back up this year to Ben McDoo is where you get the was the sightings of the big grey man up in Scotland. Right. It's a mountain. It's like the second highest mountain in Scotland, and so there's been sightings right through the years. And across from Ben McDoo, there's another place called it used to be called the Devil's Penis, right? It's called Devil's Point now, right? Yeah, and that was attributed to a lot of strange things. The Devil's in the detail with the whole kind of come back to David Pilotis with some of his stuff, right? So the Devil's in the detail. So it was called the Devil's Penis for something, right? So I'd went up during a couple of years ago. I went up and camped in between them. But planning to go back up maybe like this year. Go up there and get a visit up and see what's what.
Sorry, I'm just going, as you're talking, I'm just going for other questions. I've just got to stare a couple. Have you ever done, because I've heard there's a lot of activity around Glencoe. I don't know the exact point.
Well, Glencoe, there's a place at Glencoe called the Lost Valley.
Right.
So you go up through this, kind of mountain, and then it used to be a place where the cattle rustlers back in the day used to hide cattle. That place up there is supposed to be quite eerie. So you go up this kind of mountain through this bit, and it's like a pure flat pasture land, and then there's it's just mountains right round about you, and it's people go up there and camp and stuff like that. But that's quite an eerie place up there in Glencoe.
Yeah. No, because I've heard a lot of different stories around there. I know there's one. It's like a pub stroke hotel. I can't remember the name of it. And there's like anyone that stays there ends up, they never stay the full night.
Mm-hmm.
But they either leave and find somewhere else, or they go out and sleep in the car or van or whatever. I can't remember the name of it. I was hoping you was going to know. I know it's a bit vague, but that's all I can remember for it.
Is it definitely in Glencoe?
Yes.
Aye.
Yeah. I know. I've driven through there, so I know these. I know you got like the little villages and that scattered about in the towns, but there's not a lot really civilization in that area.
Yeah, there's not a lot there. There's a pub called the Clack Egg at the bottom of Glencoe.
Yeah.
I don't think it's that. I don't think it might be that.
No, that doesn't sound familiar.
Aye.
So if I find it, I'll let you know and see if you've got any reports on it. Oh no, that just thought I'd throw that one in. Right. Next one is for Chris from Richard Crooks. Has Chris seen the Missing 411 UFO Connection film yet? What's his thoughts on this?
I've not seen it yet, but I will be. I do follow some of the 411 stuff. I mean, I've watched most of it. I do like his work and stuff. So I've still to watch that. So I can't remember I come across it actually. I'm sure somebody had put a link to it up the other week there, and I thought I need to watch that. But no, not yet. So is it good? Put in the chat if it is.
Yeah, I'm sure someone will put some up soon. Right, next one is from Justin Apple. He wants to know how to get hold of you for how do I give Chris my close UFO sighting? So
just you can contact me on, it's easy to remember. So it's Scottish Paranormal Podcast, all one word, at gmail.com. Or you can find me on Facebook at the Scottish Paranormal Podcast on Facebook. And you can just send me a message via that. Or you'll find me on Facebook as well as Chris PP. So it's basically Chris SPPV. So it's Chris Scottish Paranormal Podcast. So any of the means. I'm on Instagram as well. I'm on Podbean, all the basically podcasting sites and stuff like that, like iTunes and stuff like that. But the main ones I'll kind of get most of my messages probably my Facebook page or my Gmail account, my Scottish Paranormal Podcast at gmail.com. Pretty straightforward. So ping me your messages. I'll send you. I check that every couple of days, so I would send you a message back, and then I could either give you a call or whatever for there. Yeah, that's right. Richard just put fantastic film, guys. Well worth a watch. Cheers, Richard. So yeah, try definitely. That'll do. If not, you know whose door to go knocking on. We trust him. Right, and next one is a question for me off Lottie. Are you organising an event this year for everyone? So, whilst out in Cannock, I took mental notes. There's a lot of areas where you can go camping. There's also a lot of areas where you can't. Don't know. It's a bit weird. You can camp, but you can't overnight camp. So you can go during the day, but then you've got to leave before it gets dark. Now, to me, that says, because I can't see anyone patrolling that area, to be honest with you, because they're all scattered about. So do you reckon that'd mean then there's no overnight camping because there's stuff going on that they don't know about? Or you're just not allowed to stay overnight in case you make a mess? Because there are quite a few
not is it National Trust, nature reserve areas that are fenced off where you can't go in. So I have been given the go ahead from the missus that I'm allowed to go and do a weekend camping over at Cannock. So I want to do that, but like I said, I want there to be at least six people going, because if anything does happen, then there's enough people there to help sort out. And the camping's free as well, so you don't even have to pay for the lot, whatever you call it. You can just turn up and go to one of the campsites. Because a lot of the parking areas, other than the visitors centre on the BMX mountain bike track, you don't have to pay for parking, but they are right out off the main drag. So once you're there, you're like middle of nowhere. So I do want to sort that out. I know Warren wanted to go. Lottie's up for going. I know Jo wants to go, but she lives the other side of the moon, so no one's going to be going down picking her up. Now she's like in Southampton. It's like I think there's only Jo that lives in Southampton. No one else lives down there. So yeah. So I'm just reading the comments. It's not very nice, isn't it? Your moderator calls you one of them. Yeah, so I'm going to be sorting that out. I'll put a note on YouTube and Facebook. So yeah, if you're coming down to England at any point, Chris.
Yeah, I come down now and again. I work down there now and again, so yeah.
How far do you come down?
Well, I cover right down into the northeast of England.
Right.
But I sometimes travel down to outside Luton and stuff like that as well.
Outside where, sorry?
Outside Luton.
Oh, it's not far from me.
Mm-hmm. So I'm down there now and again.
Yeah.
I'm actually down there next week.
Oh, give us a shout if you're anywhere near Northampton.
I'm flying in the afternoon, then I'm flying back out the next morning. After.
Right. So you're just in Luton and back again.
In and out, aye. It's actually up next to Bedford.
Right, yeah. Cool. Right. Have you anything more to add to anything, Chris?
Well, just Skinwalker stuff, obviously. That was just kind of covering a bit of the basis of the story to start off with. And then obviously, as I said, it went from the Shermans to NIDS to Bass, who were like the DIA funded. And then from that, now it's been passed on to Brandon Fugel. He kind of bought it over after Bigelow. Bigelow's like a billionaire. Brandon Fugel's he's a millionaire or a billionaire.
He's a billionaire as well, isn't it?
It's quite hefty. And so they've now kind of upgraded all the kind of security. If you watch the program, you know what I mean. So they've got security, cameras, a lot more technology. So and then it's just kind of what they find for here onwards. You know what I mean, so that was kind of the initial kind of bit of story. There are a lot more stories in there. So if you've not heard the Skinwalker Ranch, it's worth reading the books or watching a few podcasts on it. I've not maybe done it justice with some of the stories in there, but it gives a kind of idea of what the place is. And then if we move on to like the actual series, and we can obviously talk about the series because you can comment on the series, and you can there may be some bits you think is crap in the series. Sometimes you might it's actually quite good. Some things you thought kind of works and whatever. So it's all that kind of stuff. So and then for that as well, it's like how could you attribute the way I quite like it as well is how could I attribute any of that information that you've got within that series, the technology they've got, the tested run and all that kind of stuff, can we use that here? Can we use that in other areas within a kind of cost parameter? You know what I mean? Can you recreate things like that to try and poke the bear elsewhere?
Well, the thing is with them though, that Fugel's got millionaire, billionaire, whatever, so he hasn't got any issues. If they need to do an experiment, he's got the money to cover the costs. So it's nothing to him to get any of that done. Mm-hmm. But for the likes of us, it's like it's literally two yogurt cartons and a piece of string.
I've not got a helicopter line at the back of him like that.
No, I've not even got a fake one. But, well, yeah, it's a lot. If you've got the money, you can get whatever you want. So it's just how it is, isn't it? Really. But yeah, so if anyone, so we're going to be doing this for the next 3 Fridays. So next week we're going to cover season 1. Week after season 2, and then the week after that is season 3. Then a roundup of everything that we've gone over. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that is everything. I have nothing else to add on to this.
Thanks for the questions and the time, folks, as well.
Yep. So we'll see you next Friday, same time. Oh, yeah. I really can't speak tonight. For those that don't know, it's changed back from 7:30 to 8 p.m. as of this week. Even the ones on a Wednesday are going to be 8 p.m. So nothing at 7:30. Couple of reasons for it, but don't need to explain them. Just make sure you can be here at 7:30. At least you're going to get a decent seat at the front. You're not going to be sat at the back. So, yeah, that's it. So, if there's anything that you want to ask us ready for next week, get all your questions sorted and wrote down. And then we'll do like we did today. First half, we'll talk about what we've covered. Or do you want to do it? We'll do the questions as they pop up.
Yeah, easy.
I'll let you decide. It's entirely up to you. Sorry, I'm having to do. My other mod has decided to not show up, so I'm having to do everything on my own, and it's a bit of a ball ache, to be honest. So, right. On that note, we're going to go. I'll play the trailer rather than do the outro. I'll just play the trailer. What I made for the Skinwalker thing. I meant to play it at the beginning, completely forgot. So, yeah, it's just one of them weeks. Right. So, see you same time next week. Thanks again, Chris, for doing this project.
Cheers, everybody in the chat.
I'll speak to you all soon. Have a great weekend and good night.
13, 12, 11.